This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
What's up, everybody? It's good to be back after a week out of the studio. It's Jesperson and Hicks with you on this mid-August edition of Real Talk. In just a second, Charles Adler joins us.
Yeah.
Are you feeling like you're shaking off a little bit of the rust today? Taking a full week off in the middle of the summer isn't something that we often do. We'll take a day here or there, but we had given ourselves an assignment. We wanted to actually force ourselves to gear down a little bit, to take the pace down a little bit, and to spend a little bit more time with our families and just taking a couple of deep gulps of fresh air, touching grass, as they say.
I like it.
Did you manage to get around to any of that?
I did actually, but it's. Don't we always do this to ourselves? We took all this time off. I think it was like almost 10 days. And then last night we said, you know what? Let's go to a punk rock concert at 8 p.m.
Yeah. I like that we did it.
And
we kept it real. We've still got it, kids.
Yeah, we moseyed over right across the street, Fan Park, across from Rogers Place, one of the greatest punk bands of all time. My favorite band, NOFX, calling it quits after, God, since I've been 15, they've been playing, so they must be, I don't know, 60,
They were playing
65.
in the early 80s, dude.
Yeah.
They were playing when you were barely born. But
one of the, if I know we've got a few punk fans in our chat, but one of the early SoCal, Southern California punk bands, before Blink-182, before all these other bands like Green Day made it popular, and they had an absolutely amazing show last night. Here's a little footage if you're watching on YouTube. Calling it quits, their last show in Canada, their last show in Edmonton, heading back to LA for 3 shows, and then they're not like Motley Crue. They're not like Guns N' Roses. They say this is it. They are done. It is over. Their legs hurt, their back hurts, their joints hurts. Punk rock has made them weak and feeble. They are done. But I had a great time with you. I reliving some of our youth out there, and just an incredible band. Their last song, 12 minutes long. Punk bands, most of the time their songs are like 2-3 minutes long. They did a 12-minute song for the encore, and just a great night.
Yeah, I thought it was there was one interesting moment in the show, and I was like, we got to talk about this,
thing,
right?
Yeah.
He's like, how many of you are here? How many of you here are from fucking Quebec? And then I'm like, there's a couple of ways to interpret that.
Yeah,
like when you say fucking Quebec, that can be presented in a couple of different ways. It can be like right on, or it can be the different way. And then he kind of goes on to his like, yeah, we don't care about that. We got all that oil money. We got that oil money. Yeah. And I'm sitting there going, I think he's trolling the entire group. I think he's trolling the entire crowd right now with the Quebec Alberta blast. But he knew what buttons he was pushing.
He was, but he was also relating because he said, who's never worked a day in their life? And everyone's like, yeah. And he's like, that's because we got the oil money. And,
like, oh, boy.
And then he, unleashes into a tirade of a song where he says, fuck the NRA and screw the government. And, but it's kind of it's a juxtaposition because he's probably the richest mainstream record label in the world. He's never gone mainstream. You don't hear their songs on the radio, but the guy's definitely a millionaire. He's one of the biggest punk rock names in the game. So
for people that are checking out my Instagram story from the show last night, and I saw that you shared it as well, it's like, as they're singing, it's like, whoa, Champs-Élysées. And I'm sort of thinking like, as they were singing that, not exactly, but just a couple of hours before that, Paris had wrapped up. It's hosting at the Summer Olympic Games. Pretty solid Olympics for all intents and purposes. I think some interesting storylines.
Definitely.
We thought maybe today we'd kind of get into that, recap it. I'm curious to see where the live chat's at. I'm curious to see where Charles Adler's at on that. So, some of the storylines, obviously kind of unique to Canada and some really fun ones. The men's 4x100 was awesome. Our summer Macintosh in the pool, like unbelievable.
Amazing.
So
Andre DeGrasse
coming back.
Some letdowns.
And then the sort of like trash talking from the Americans relay team and all that. And then there were the the bigger stories. I think that everybody now has like become officially an expert on like gender and testing and boxing.
Let's
and
get into
what
it.
a distraction
ready.
that was there. I
ready.
know you're ready to talk about that
ready.
story, and this is what happens when a show like this, when we do what we know we're supposed to do, which is take a little time for ourselves and our families, but we're both chomping at the bit to get back into it and to talk to Charles Adler and to reconnect with this audience. And so we're all grateful that you're here with us today. This episode of Real Talk is happening with the presenting sponsorship of our friends at Alberta's top online real estate school. That's Relo, of course, at RELO.ca. If you're considering a career in real estate, let me tell you this, straight up, there's nowhere you need to go more than Relo. It makes the most sense for you. Why? Because they've got an experienced team of instructors that are going to help you study for your exam. They're going to help you get certified and licensed so you can practice real estate, and then they're going to help you start your career off on the right foot. It's flexible online learning with industry-leading instructors and high exam pass rates, which matters. That's relevant. You don't want to waste your time spinning your tires. Don't forget, when you're signing up at Relo, use the promo code Ryan100, that's all one word, to knock $100 off the Alberta commercial and the Alberta residential real estate bundles. So at $200 in savings if you use that promo code Ryan100 at Relo.ca.
Yeah.
Charles Adler is presented weekly on Real Talk by our friends at Tice Automotive Consulting. And Chuck, gosh, it feels like it's been quite some time since our paths have crossed. Just a week, but we needed a little more Adler in our lives. So we're good to see you again. Good morning.
I appreciate it. I'm glad that you guys geared down for a little bit. And
when I said that, I
saw
thought
some
it kind of sounded like we got naked.
And I love Johnny Infamous being on the show, because who else goes on a podcast these days, or a broadcast for that matter, to use the J word, as in juxtaposition. Many people heading for Google right now saying, what the hell is he talking about?
I have this app that tells me every day to learn a new word, and that was one I learned before we got off. So
well done.
I'm just trying to get
Great
in there.
stuff.
But do we want to talk? Let's just start it off, Adler. Your thoughts, Iman Khalifa winning gold.
Oh, you're just going right to it. Did you pay attention to this story, Chuck? The women's boxing? I mean, if I would say controversy, I don't know if there actually is a controversy.
I'm a little traditional. I know that some conservatives are not happy with some of my politics, but I'm basically a traditionalist. And in the world I come from, if you're born with a dick, you're a guy, and without, you're a woman. And it just isn't any more complicated than that. I was not ready for this world where not knowing whether you're male or female, or for the folks not knowing whether a person is a male or female, is as complicated as it is. I would suggest that science is generally the answer. And at some point, I think that the Olympics simply have to adopt some science which determines, based on testing of hormone levels, who is qualified to be in a male sport and who's in a female sport. And we could avoid a lot of this nonsense. Because at the moment, when you're involved in the nonsense, people are actually afraid to express an opinion. Oh, if I say such and such, is someone going to call me a homophobe? And when you live 24/7 with that cleaver at your neck, it's not freedom. And I just think that science can fix this. At least I hope I can. I've always counted on science, and I've never bet against science, and I've never lost a bet.
Yeah, I mean, after winning gold, she does interviews. Obviously, it's become like, I don't know if I say the story of the Olympic Games, but
sure.
I think it has been.
It's a shame,
we haven't
but
even mentioned Simone Biles yet. We haven't mentioned, there's obviously a ton of storylines, a lot of amazing things happening. How about the women's marathon gold yesterday?
Oh, incredible.
She wins gold on the track in the 5,000 and 10,000 meters, then goes and wins the marathon. There's a ton of stories going on.
Hammer twins.
Right,
so
the
much,
Hammer twins in Canada. We can talk about a bunch of this, but Iman Khalifa does an interview after winning the gold, and she says, as for whether I qualify or not, whether I'm a woman or not, she says, I've made many statements in the media. I'm fully qualified to take part in this competition. I'm a woman like any other woman. I was born a woman. I lived a woman. I competed as a woman. There's no doubt about that. She says the detractors are enemies of success. That's what I call them, and that gives my success a special taste because of these attacks.
Yeah, and I'll just give you, because I had to research all this, Ryan, because I'm the same as you. I'm seeing these memes, I'm seeing this propaganda, which I now call it, and the memes, I'm sure Adler saw them as well. Trans woman beats real woman in boxing, etc. And I just went and looked it up. And, the Coles Notes is basically that the IBA is a professional boxing organization. Basically, a lot of panelists on this organization are from Russia. But basically, they call the shots in all of boxing. Basically, if you want to qualify for the World Championships, anything international, the Olympics, these guys call the shots. Until about 2017, 18, 19, when the IOC started investigating and seeing, hey, these guys are almost broke. They've got financial problems, rumors of corruption. So what do? They replace the head of their organization with another guy, this guy. His name is Umar Kamlev. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Basically a crime boss in his native land, friend of Putin, just Kremlin-backed, and he says he's going to restore decency to the organization. Fast forward to 2023. Aman Khalifa defeats a Russian boxer who is thought to be the next great white hope in Eastern Europe. She's really good. She gets beaten pretty hap-handedly by Aman Khalifa. And what do? They give Aman Khalifa a gender test. And the results that come back that we still haven't seen, by the way, say she has chromosome indeficiencies or something like that. Irregularities. Thank you very much. This is the phrase that we've heard. Is this elevated levels of testosterone? Is this an extra chromosome? We don't know.
But can I even jump in and say, just even to say this is like, all of that is while it's relevant, it's also irrelevant in that Aman Khalifa is not a trans woman.
This is what I'm saying.
Right? It's one the whole thing is one sentence.
Yes.
And I see Alberta Girl in our chat that's saying letting a trans woman compete in boxing is a complete degradation of women's rights. She's not trans.
She's not intersex.
And it takes 5 seconds of Googling to figure that out and to find that out. And I just thought, Chuck, that the bigger picture on this, look at this, Megyn Kelly tweeting this. This was yesterday, obviously, to her 3 million followers. The American broadcaster, obviously very well known around the world, she tweets, "Holy shit, they really did it. They gave the women's gold medal to a male boxer. I can't with this shit." She's not a male boxer. And I just I don't know. To me, I'm just watching this play out over the last week or so, going is anybody actually is anybody that has opinions on this? Anybody just chiming in on this actually paying attention to I don't know, Charles, the facts? Is it, you know what I'm saying? I mean, if it is one thing, if we're talking about trans women competing in women's sports at the Olympics, then let's talk about that. But this is not that. And I was a little bit blown away, a little gobsmacked, still am, when I saw Megyn Kelly's tweet. That's just one of many examples
Donald
we
Trump,
could use.
Elon Musk,
Right?
Logan Paul, Jake Paul, J.K. Rowling, all rich white people who seem to know things that we don't know.
Well, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like anybody was concerning themselves with the fact of the matter in this story, Charles.
I got to tell you, the story that got me going far more, because I frankly get, like I say, I'm traditional. If you're born with a male sex organ, you're a man, and female, you're a female, and what's the point of going any further? And as far as testosterone goes, I mean, that's a ridiculous argument, because females have testosterone. Some females have higher levels of testosterone than others. Some males have lower levels of testosterone than others. I mean, that's the way that cookie crumbles. The story in the Olympics that interested me far more, and I know some people say, well, no, this is the one that has to interest you because this is where most of the polarization is. But polarization stories don't always interest me a whole lot. The story that interested me the most, Ryan and Johnny, was the pole vaulter, whose pole that I imagine he was born with is now as large as
you're talking about the guy
as the Olympic pole
who hit his
junk. And I've never seen video like that. And I'm not trying to be cheesy about this, but I mean, what are the chances that a pole vaulter will have his own personal biological pole interfere with this opportunity for a medal?
Yeah, so just to let people know that are going to be watching this on YouTube, we're actually we'll get shut down in a second if we show you video of Olympic highlights and stuff like that. So we're not going to. Yeah. So this is more like YouTube podcast experience will be all the same as we describe this, as we use the power of our words. And I know most people have seen it, but yeah, it's hilarious for everybody except for that athlete. Right? Because for that athlete, although while this whole thing is kind of like bragging rights to the max on the biggest global stage, to be able to clear the height that you're going at in the Olympic pole vault and then have, like you said, Charles, your own personal appendage be prominent enough to knock the bar down and ultimately disqualify you from moving forward in that round. It's actually amazing, awesome, fantastic, legendary. I just don't know if at the end of the day, the athlete will be able to see the humor in it. Right now, it's probably still just a little bit raw. It's probably still a little too recent.
This too is why it's interesting, because this is the first time in my life that I have ever felt sorry for a person who has what we'll call a healthy swan.
Okay. Chuck, did you watch a lot of the Olympics? Like, were you the guy that like every single day was like, what's coming up this day, watching the events, or what was your?
Sorry, I'm much more. I'm Chuck, and I'm Canadian, and I get that we're in the Summer Olympics, and that's all interesting to a lot of people. But as far as the events in the Olympics to me is a show, and to me, hockey is always going to be the big show, and ice skating and bobsledding, and I'm a Winter Olympics guy. I'm absolutely glued to the Winter Olympics. When it comes to the summer, I watch some YouTube videos, and that's about all she wrote.
I just, one of the things I love about the Summer Olympic Games in particular, and this my Olympic experience is like you become, like Summer McIntosh would be an example for me. You become a super fan of somebody that you've like never heard of before.
That's the
you know what I
beauty of
mean?
it,
That's the beauty of the Olympic Games. And I just think like Canada has a lot to be proud of. I know we're like not like top 10 in the medals or anything like that. You always see the U.S. and China fighting it out at the Summer Games.
Of course.
And there's all those storylines, but there are so many athletes that give us so much to be proud of. You were going on and on yesterday about the Hammer Twins.
The Hammer Twins are just
Hammer
incredible.
throw is one of the greatest Olympic events of all time. Because if it goes sideways, right? Like if you aim in the wrong direction, I mean, it's got potential for real disaster. I love watching it.
It's amazing how they thread the needle through that like 3-foot hole. But I was watching the American coverage is incredible on NBC. I don't want to say TV names, but whatever. CBC's coverage was awesome too. And I'm going to say this, and I know a lot of people in the chat are going to disagree. I think this was the best brought to us in terms of entertainment, the way it was displayed, all the storylines in USA, China, even France. France stepped up huge because they were the host country.
Basketball, they
Canada,
almost won gold in men's and women's.
It's amazing how they conjure this strength when it's their home country. I think this was the best Olympics of our lifetime. Coming from someone, me in my, I don't know, fine, I'm in my 40s. I think it was. The way it was brought to us, the storylines, Simone Biles, Ethan and Cameron, the Hammer Throw twins, Andre DeGrasse, who sprinters, they've got that window from like 20 to 29 years old where they're good. I think we've seen the last of him where he was down and out. He didn't qualify and then comes back to win gold in the relay. Summer obviously killing it in terms of just Canada. But then you look at the U.S., they had some amazing storylines with Simone Biles. And then even France, like their swimmer, Leon, whoever.
That young guy, 16 or whatever.
4 medals, 3 of them gold, showing his country what he does. Every storyline was just absolutely incredible. And I don't want to go back to it, but just marred by all this controversy and people talking about the boxers.
Johnny, how do you feel about breaking at the Olympics?
I knew you were going to ask.
We can show these photos.
Show this. This is all over the net.
How do you feel this Australian breakdancer who's being like, I didn't at first, I'll be honest, I'm not trying to be an asshole. I thought it was a bit.
Yeah. So
I thought it was kind of a joke, but not a joke.
No, this is a 36-year-old breakdancing and art teacher from Australia, and she scored a 0, actually, an actual 0. She came in dead last, or I think someone else tied her with 0. But again, breakdancing, almost like cheerleading, where I don't understand the scoring. And again, we were talking about this last night in the studio, me, you, and a buddy. It's kind of subjective because the judges, you've got like 12 judges, and it's subjective. But I will say this, and then we'll go to Charles because I know he's been sitting there and he's probably got an opinion on breaking. Here's what I will say. There's a lot of athleticism in the Olympics, but the meat of the Olympics is the athletics. The running, the jumping, the pole vaulting, the swimming, the high jump, the relay. That is what the Olympics were built off. That's what we watch for. People with superhuman strength going fast like Superman, I get it. But over the years, we've added things like dressage, artistic swimming. Is that really athletic compared to guys with six-packs on their head doing full-out spins and backflips? And then last night I said this, I know it's going to piss you off and our listeners, but compare those guys to golfers. Who's more athletic? Some guy hitting a ball and having a beer as he goes to the next hole, or these guys? I think it's athleticism. Does it belong in the Olympics? I don't know. I will leave it to this. it's up to the fans. If they like it, that's what the Olympics want. They want you to watch, and if you like it and you're watching, they like it.
Well, shout out to Phil Wizard, by the way, who won gold.
Canadian!
Yeah, Canadian.
Wins
so
the first ever gold.
A Canadian breakdancer wins gold in the first ever time. But does breaking belong in the Olympics? And to be fair, I know I'm protective over one of my favorite sports, but we can expand. Chuck, does golf belong in the Olympics? I think it's kind of, I don't know if we can compare the two, but
I think golf belongs in the Olympics. I think golf is athletic. I also think that Indy 500 racing, NASCAR racing, Grand Prix, auto racing,
line dancing
is athletic.
Poker.
And I can't imagine why, especially Paris. I can't imagine Paris being against Grand Prix racing being an Olympic sport. And I think for all of us who spent a little too much time in bars, whether it's because of our university days or otherwise, you get into the boat racing, which is, of course, drinking beer. What's wrong with some boat racing in the Olympics? And the other things that we used to do in bars, especially if we got into too much boat racing, arm wrestling. I'd love to see Canada win gold against the Russians in arm wrestling.
Yeah, how is arm wrestling not an Olympic sport? I think it was pretty interesting to see the world number one, Scotty Scheffler, in tears when he wins Olympic gold. It says a lot. I've never seen him in tears. I didn't see him in tears when he won the Masters. I haven't seen him in tears when he won the other majors. But I thought that said something. I do think golf belongs in the Olympics. Breakdancing, I don't know, in the live chat here. Number one, I love this from Bunny Slippers, who says, Johnny, you've clearly never done dressage, I guess, Bunny Slippers says, because they had a six-pack when they did that for years.
No, that's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is these events don't fit the mold of necessary quote-unquote athletics, but they're in the Olympics. Do I think synchronized swimming is something, that years ago people thought would be the Olympics? No, but now you watch China. That is some real talent to be that synchronized. The breathing, amazing. The flipping in the water. Well, I get it.
Yeah.
But it opens up this door to how many other people, and cheerleading is barking at the door right now. We were talking about this last night.
Yeah, but you look at cheer teams, maybe it should be.
They want to be in it, but again, that's like just handing the U.S. another Olympic medal because it's not really international. Breakdancing, every country, you've got Russia, France in second place. That's the reason they added it. France is a huge breakdancing nation.
My understanding is that the host countries play some role in maybe selecting some of the sports.
They get to choose up to 5 new
I like
events,
the point from Whitestream in the chat who says breakdancing is basically just like the pommel horse. It's just on the ground. Fair enough. Leslie says we were very happily surprised by the breaking. Incredible athletic skills. I'd love to see it again.
Thank you for that. Because it is rooted in jiu-jitsu, karate, and gymnastics. Those were the guys who started it.
No doubt that the athleticism is paramount to the sport. Chuck, I guess what this all comes down to when people have these debates over does this sport belong in the Olympics or not. I was in attendance in 1988 in Calgary at Canada Olympic Park to watch ski ballet. I'm not sure if you've seen ski ballet. We can't show it to you or we'll get shut down here, but people can Google it themselves. You can YouTube it. It is one of the funniest things you've ever seen. But again, and I'm not trying to sound like a prick, to clarify, it is not a joke. It's the people that do it are very serious about it. But the question is, when you start talking about including something in the Olympics and you're handing out Olympic medals, when it comes to the currency of how much swagger one has or how much accolades one earns, an Olympic gold medal is about as good as it gets regardless of sport. And so I think some people just kind of wonder if you look at, the men's and women's 100-meter dash winners or the Olympic marathon winners, and then they're standing there with the person that wins the break dancing or the breaking gold. And I think ultimately what it comes down to is people wondering whether or not you're bastardizing what an Olympic medal stands for. Or maybe I'm just overthinking it.
Wouldn't you love horse racing? Wouldn't you love to see a horse that was barned in Alberta, trained in Alberta with an Alberta jockey winning Olympic gold? Please don't tell me that is not athletic, not just on the part of the horse, but the jockey and everyone else involved.
Yeah, why not? Why not? It gets people excited. I like this from Mariah in the chat. I bet a lot of people have this experience. She says, I thought that breaking was pretty gimmicky at first, and then I kept watching, she says, and it had me hooked pretty quickly. So that's kind of part of it too, right? You've got everybody watching on this global stage for a lot of sports. This is, you never know, a generation of kids sees that in the 2024 games, and then by, 2040, or whatever. Maybe this is kind of next generation. It's like the Gretzky going to California effect. Then you have like these athletes, these young athletes that are exposed to something, they see it, they fall in love with it, and then that sport takes off. No bigger stage than the Olympics for stuff like that.
In the old days, I would have recommended paper carriers being in the Olympics, because I honestly thought that delivering, especially if you delivered the morning paper, because in the old days people used to read, so delivering the morning paper and the afternoon paper and fighting different dogs and drunks to make sure that you can get paid, et cetera, et cetera. Anyone who's been a paper carrier knows what I'm talking about. It was an athletic sport, in my opinion.
Shalane is absolutely correct in our chat. She says she heard that tug of war used to be an Olympic sport.
It was, yeah.
It was. We just looked it up from 1900 to 1920. Tug of war was at every Olympic Games. And why not?
Rope climb, I believe, was also one where you just remember in gym class?
Oh, man.
That used to be an Olympic
nightmare.
sport back in the day. How fast whoever got to the top of the rope got a gold medal. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And let's not forget Greco-Roman wrestling. I used to watch the summer games.
Oh, hell yeah. Absolutely, as it should be. I don't know. So I think it's cool. I shout out to the French. I do want to touch on who was it in here? Justin or someone was talking about. He says, I love how France spent, everybody's talking about this,
so much
like
money.
$1.5 billion or $2 billion
Ridiculous.
to clean the Seine, which is like one of the dirtiest rivers in Europe, and says, and it just absolutely didn't work, like not at all. He says literally shitty for the people that got sick. You saw those photos and of athletes like puking,
but
after they were. It was like, what is going on here?
In terms of entertainment, let me just say this. This was beautiful. This was immaculate. This was, the Eiffel Tower in the background as tennis is playing out. Just the fireworks display at the end. I mean, did you see this, Ryan? Tom Cruise bungee cording in at the end of the Olympic closing ceremony and carrying the flag on a motorcycle from Paris. And then they switch to a video and all of a sudden he's on the shores of LA because LA is 2028's Olympics. I mean, just the whole thing from an eye-catching point of view, the storylines, everything, it was just beautiful. And it was all marred by this controversy and people online saying, the opening ceremony and worst Olympics ever. Wrong. You're wrong. This was one of the, if not the best Olympics of our lifetime. It's brought to you in such a spectacular way, and I'm so glad we had a week off to just ingest it all. It was gorgeous.
But let me just throw something in here, Johnny. Anyone who wants to judge a spectacular series of events like the Olympics by focusing on the grumps and the grouses on Twitter.
100%.
I mean, I'm sorry. That's not living a life. You and Ryan talk about taking a week off and downsizing and downscaling and getting the cobwebs out of your head and all the rest of that stuff. God bless you for doing that. But please, if you're going to watch the Olympics and enjoy the Olympics, get off Twitter.
Oh, man.
Now.
Yeah. And I was honestly, I was in tears. Andre DeGrasse, I was like, man, this guy's done. He's going to flop. This is the last time I'll ever see him. And then being the last guy in that relay, coming through and just seeing his face like, thank God.
Yeah.
I still got. And then the hammer throw twins, 120 years since we've placed in hammer throw, and we win a gold medal with Ethan. And then followed up with Cameron's gold medal. Summer McIntosh is blowing everyone away in the
17 years old, man.
It's just like I'm sitting there and I'm watching, and you always think when the Olympics come around, it's kind of cheesy, whatever. And then you see them get up on that podium and you see them crack and you see them sing the national anthem and you realize how much hard work and life dedication goes into this.
Oh, man.
And all of a sudden you realize these people are the real superheroes. These are the people that we should be looking up to, not athletes who make millions of dollars. These people who don't make millions of dollars.
No, man, a lot of them are like, barely able to kind of scrape by.
Yeah.
They've got to, it's a real grind for a lot of these Olympic athletes. And it just always blows my mind. There's that like speed rock climbing event and all that kind of stuff, 5 seconds in and out. I know I'm not saying anything profound here, but I watched the 100 meters, 200 meters. It just blows my mind that you're training on something your whole life. Every 4 years you have a shot at it, and it's over in like 9 seconds. Some of these events are over in 5 seconds. Just blows my mind. I think it's just fantastic.
The inches
Lauren
we
in
talked
here,
about.
Exactly. Yeah. By the way, I went back and rewatched the Al Pacino Inches speech the other day. Still just bangs. What a scene. But Lauren here says he'd like to see team lawn darts in a future Olympics. Based on my performance at the family farm over the last week, I'm going to tell you that if Canada is throwing a bocce team into the Olympics, I'm expecting a phone call because I was absolutely knocking them out this week on bocce. I'm only only saying that because I'm hoping that they're listening. How about this from Vamp Fashions in the chat, who thinks back to great Olympic performances, says Susan Natras from Edmonton was one of the world's best trap shooters for several Olympics. Charles,
We had her on the show.
what do you and Susan Natras have in common? The greatest trap shooter in Olympic history. On December 12th of 2022, both of you appeared on an episode of Real Talk together. Dr. Natras was actually there to talk to us about Bill C-21. At the time was the liberal gun control bill, and people can check out that episode. It was a great conversation with her. Just an incredible Olympian, and actually a really informed take on gun control. Yep. I'm going to put that episode into the show notes on this for the podcast and on YouTube. If you want to go back, that interview stands the test of time. But Dr. Susan Natras, an Olympic legend, talking to us on Real Talk on December 12th of 2022.
And because you hosted it, it was a balanced podcast. I was the patient. Sue was the doctor.
There you go, brother.
And let's not forget about, this is just because we're talking about a game of inches, Marco Arop from Edmonton.
Yeah,
This guy
almost won gold.
And we're talking like
800
Ryan,
meters.
That we're talking. I know this is from Seinfeld, but first place, second place.
Yeah.
Never heard of him. First place, second place. He wins silver, 1/100th of a second.
Oh, man.
Away from winning gold. This is what I'm talking about. This is why the Olympics make me feel like a kid every time I watch them, because literally, if it's not even about could you have trained harder, could that one little muscle in your leg given an extra 0.0001%, you could have been an Olympic gold medal.
Yeah,
champion.
but also you could have been in fourth place,
true.
or fifth or 10th or whatever. You know what I mean? It blows my mind the incredible.
None of us live on that razor thin edge,
No.
and that's why all of them. I don't care whether they're first, second,
Exactly,
third, fourth.
Charles.
That's why all of them deserve accolades, because none of us compete in areas of life where it's just that close that you can't even see it with the human eye, where you need a Swiss clock or a Japanese clock or some kind of device to figure out the difference between gold and silver. It's amazing.
Yeah, we got a lot of people in the chat, that including Darren and others, Plain Power. They'd like to see dodgeball in the games. I wouldn't mind that. I think that's a great idea, actually. Yeah, just see people just getting absolutely beamed. I think that would be pretty good. Leslie says that thought the camaraderie between the breaking athletes, the break dancers, was the best. Leslie says so much joy and support in that sport. A lot of smiles, a lot of laughs, and then Goose follows up and says, Leslie, that's just the true spirit of hip-hop. I love it. We're hanging out with Charles Adler here, first episode of the week on Real Talk, and Adler's performances on the show are sponsored by our friends at Tice Automotive Consulting. You can check out what they do at ticeautomotive.com. Buying a vehicle should be fun, and Tice can make that happen. So here's who needs Tice. If you feel like every time you walk into a car dealership, you're either going to get taken advantage of, you're going to get ripped off, you're going to wind up with the vehicle that you don't need, you're not getting the vehicle you do need, and then with those mechanics appointments, you're not sure, are they stringing you along? How can you tell if they're telling the truth? TiceAutomotive.com to the rescue. With so many makes and models out there, new or pre-owned, it can be tough to know what vehicle is going to meet your lifestyle needs and your budget. You have a quick chat with Tice, you tell them your budget, you tell them what you're looking for, they go out and source the vehicle for you. They're going to drop it off at your house with white glove service. They're even going to make sure that when your oil changes, your tire rotations are due, they have a monthly subscription service so you can take it off your plate and off your mind. I love what they're doing. Tice making the buying experience stress less, transforming it into worry-free and fun. Again, TiceAutomotive.com. Our friends at Friesen Brothers reminding you that barbecue season is, of course, a perfect time of year to get the family together, and they've got a ton of resources, including giveaways, grilling tips, and more on their website at Friesen.com. Plus, families are going to want to make sure you check out the Family Essentials flyer. You can get it in-store or online. We love it, because it's given us quality food ideas for low prices every single day. You can also join Friesen Brothers' Smart Shopper Savings Program. They'll email you the flyer every single week. And don't forget, the first day of every month, it's 15% off purchases of $75 or more at Friesen Brothers. Our friends at California Closets are committed to getting you decluttered and organized and enjoying your space again with custom closets and storage solutions for the entire home. And it all starts with a free design consultation. You got nothing to lose. You can book it online at californiaclosets.ca. Check out the work that they do. Custom closets, entertainment centers, a garage storage system that'll make you the envy of the neighborhood. Their team's the best in the business. We know it firsthand. You'll find them online at californiaclosets.ca.
And a shout out, I know we're not talking about, we're talking about the gold medalists, but a shout out to all the people who came in, second and third. You've got the Alicia, the pole vaulter, who got the bronze. You've got the beach volleyball team for Canada was absolutely outstanding, coming in silver.
Yeah.
And again, a game of inches, but man, so good for Canada. And then you look at the standings though, Ryan, and it's a little bit of a letdown. We come in, 12th? With 27, and I know I think we leveled up from the last Olympics. I think our overall total, like the record, was 1986 or something like that, 44. But I mean, you look at USA and just dominant, 126 medals, tied for gold with China, and here we go.
Okay,
and,
so but also and like 40 golds for the Americans, 40 golds for the Chinese. The Americans kind of making up a lot of ground too with gold, silver, bronze for 126 total medals, like you said. But look at this in Canada in 12th place, 9 gold, 27 total medals for population. All right.
Yeah,
if you go do it based on population, we're like 10. What are we, Chuck? 12% of the American population, something like that. We're approximately 40 million. They're approximately 300 million, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I always do 10 times, but it's probably like 12 times.
So I think Canada's punching outside its weight class.
And math ought to be here. One more I'll throw on, and then we can move on to politics or anything else you choose. But I'm always recommending sports where I know Canada will do well. Bar fighting. What do you think?
Who wins bar fighting? You know what? I think bar fighting is like there's like a Romanian comes in and just beats the shit out of everybody. I don't think.
I'm always thinking about Roadhouse because I love bar fight scenes, but Roadhouse was a series of them.
But it's awesome.
Love that movie.
It's awesome. We've got our things now though. We're a breakdancing nation. We're a swimming nation. We've got the running, and now of course we've got, I don't know why, but we're really good at hammer throw now. We've got gold medals in both men's and women's, and just watching, especially Cameron, when she did her last throw, broke down in tears, hugged her coach, hugged her parents. I mean, I got so choked up. I was like, this is what it's all about. She was actually, I think the story is her mother or father was working somewhere, and a coach just recognized her and said, hey, she looks kind of built. She'd be great at athletics. Didn't have an interest in it. Tried a bunch of different things. This one fit, and then a few years later, she's standing on the podium. Absolutely incredible.
Oh, I love stories like that. Ken says the Olympics can be a great show, but I hope we never bid for them. He says the Olympics belong in places that already have the facilities built. The next games were handed to L.A. Because nobody else had bid. This is a debate that goes on, that obviously flares up, and not just the Olympic Games. I remember when Edmonton was interested in bringing World Cup, people want FIFA events here. I mean, obviously there's the huge high-profile sporting events that nations bid for and end up costing billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars. I was out in Vancouver working an event a couple of months ago, and I came back. I was talking to you how great it was to take that Canada line, that train from the airport to downtown for $8 or whatever. That's like one example of infrastructure that Vancouver got as a result of the games. Obviously, the sea-to-sky highway improvements. Calgary saw major infrastructure builds back in '88. There's obviously some benefits for the host city, but the Olympics are in the red basically every single year. They're like a money bleeding. I remember hearing that the Sochi games were like just horrendously expensive, and I guess it kind of begs the question of like when it all comes down to it, Chuck, it's for the fans, and what do the fans want? But it's also like to kind of be a geek and a nerd for a second when we just switch into political mode here and start talking about taxpayers, what taxpayers want. Can you make a compelling argument to taxpayers that your country should be bidding to host the Olympic Games? I think the ship has sailed.
No, it's not possible because, the story's out, the horse is out of the barn, whether we're talking about FIFA or whether we're talking about the IOC. I mean, these people are running a racket and you're paying the racketeer tons of money that has absolutely nothing to do with the games, except they're in charge of the brand. And so if you want taxpayers to spend tens of millions of dollars handing it over to some small shadowy organization in Switzerland, and I'm not a conspiracist, but that's just a fact. No, I'm not interested. But the fans watch the Olympics, 99% of them on TV. What difference does it make if I'm watching an event from LA or Paris or Tokyo or Russia or whatever? I can still enjoy the event. And if I don't have to fork out money to the FIFAs and the IOCs, all the better.
Yeah. Charles, maybe, I don't know if you want to just maybe a quick apology, if you want to issue a quick apology to Christopher here for any damage to his infrastructure this morning. Christopher says, thanks to Charles, I just spit a mouthful of coffee all over my laptop with his pitch for Olympic bar fighting. Says it's absolutely amazing. So there you go, Christopher. Sorry, not sorry.
Chris.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We do have
sorry,
who was it? I think it was Erica's suggested, thinks that the Scottish might take gold in bar fighting. Although Horse Lake Ranch is pretty sure that there's a
Irish
couple
and
of
Scottish,
Irish
silver
and
and gold.
Scottish. Yeah, there's a Horse Lake Ranch is pretty sure there's an Olympic gold medalist, or maybe a few of them in Claresholm, Alberta, ready to throw down in Olympic bar brawling. So how is this going to go? Like you have to crush, like you have to have a few beers first. Somebody has to like look at your girl or something, or like how does it start? 'Cause it's got to start when someone's got to chuck a bottle, or there's got like a stool's got to go flying or something to officially start it.
You have to have a 2-4 of beer and a belly full of anger because someone has just dissed the person you thought was your girl. Turns out she's not. So that has to be the setup. And, we talk about the Scottish and the Irish and everything. The great thing about Canada is we have all those people. We have Scotsmen, we've got Irishmen, we've got everybody. I honestly think Canada has a great chance at gold in bar fighting.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to rule us out.
I love that we're talking about it.
It's not going to be anybody from the big city. It's going to be.
No,
yeah.
it's about, and we have to take rural Canada more seriously.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, rural Canada right now is just portrayed and perceived as, kooks who don't like vaccines. That's always ticked me right off. Most people in rural Canada are not against science. They understand, especially if they're involved in agriculture, that without science, they don't have the lifestyle that they enjoy. So to have them all portrayed as far right-wing religious kooks and whack jobs, I can't stand that.
And with that,
bar fighting in the Olympics would bring honor to rural Canada.
What would they wear? What would the competitors wear?
It'd have to be something like
Wranglers and
deprecating.
boots for sure.
Probably skirts or kilts or something like that.
Kilts.
So,
I mean, yeah.
So everything, your legs were free to get as much movement as you can, or spandex, something like that.
Yeah, I like where this is going. We've got. I mean,
I guarantee you, with all due respect to our friend from Montreal, who's congratulations, Olympic gold, breakdancing. I guarantee you, more Canadians would get into bar fighting than breakdance.
Vancouver,
100%.
Phil Wiz,
there's
Vancouver,
no doubt about that.
Vancouver.
Phil Wizard, yeah.
I only know this because every media person I know from Vancouver was just posting the crap out of this. Vancouver is a breakdancing city, because it is. Vancouver has that scene there. But man, Phil Wiz was another guy when he was on the podium looking at the flag and just he's thinking like, I could be the only gold medalist in this event ever, and just broke down and cried.
But you know what? It's
awesome. You can't, even if you don't like the breakdancing and the sport of it, it's just amazing.
And you have to have you need to. I remember there was big protests back in the day when snowboarding was going to be included in the Olympics, and everybody thought that was a travesty. But if you're going to keep people coming back, and if you're going to have the newer, younger generations interested, like if you're going to have 10 and 12 and 15-year-olds interested in watching the games have got to evolve and grow a little bit as well. Like, with due respect, I'm just picking a sport at random, not criticizing the athletes, they're incredible, but with due respect, something like even the hammer throw or the discus or the javelin or all these types of things, the average person, if you stop someone on the street and said, name three.
The top hammer thrower.
The top hammer thrower in the world, or tell me who's the greatest all-time javelin thrower. People don't know, and I'm not saying that disrespectfully. Thanks to the Olympics, maybe we do learn some of these names, but you got to always have stuff that I think creates and generates interest. And so I think that's the Olympics challenge. Now, what's made it even kind of more interesting is that the Olympics, I recognize now I'm talking winter games, but you get something like the X Games that comes along and pushes the Olympics.
That's what totally totally
to
did
be
it.
relevant, right? Because the last thing you want is all of a sudden the Olympics being so old school that it's not open to any new events, and then all of a sudden the X Games starts to eat your lunch, and it will.
And you look at this with skateboarding now, like, it's been around, I think, 3 Olympic Games now. There is no arguing that is not athletic, that these 16, 17, 18-year-old, 19-year-old girls and boys are not incredibly talented. And it brought all that. Nobody even talks about the X Games anymore because it's an Olympic sport. So you're right.
Hey, Chuck, you want to talk Trump for a second? I know that
Sure,
this
but
is.
let me just say something moral, because people always expect me to say something that espouses Canadian values.
Okay.
So I strongly oppose tweaking as an Olympic sport. I don't want to glorify drug dealing and meth dealers and all the rest of it. So that kind of trash I'm opposed to. And I realize it would be hip and modern and contemporary, and some people would get into it because it's so today. Sorry, I don't stand for yesterday, but I am opposed to tweaking as an Olympic sport. There you go.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, okay. Hey, on the record, Adler's drawn the line. He's found the line. Hey, let me ask you about this, because everybody's trying to. We're going to play a clip. So this is what's the context here? This is basically Donald Trump on the golf course.
Yeah.
For people that are hearing this on the podcast, and he's talking to a group on the course.
So it's I think it's like a concession stand worker. There's people who come up to you with beer and snacks on the golf course.
Yeah, and so you can see like it's captured here by somebody who's clearly by the video. You can see kind of like incognito. They got their phone concealed, and Donald Trump is talking about Kamala Harris, and it's one of his lines in particular. We're going to play it for you. You guys be the judge. We'll debate and discuss what he says about the Democratic nominee for president. Here's Donald Trump.
How did I do with the debate the other night?
Oh, amazing.
Kicked that old broken down pile of crap.
Yeah.
It's a bad guy. He just quit, He's quitting the race.
Is that right?
Yep, I got him out of the race. And that means we have Kamala. I think she's going to be better. She's so bad. She's so pathetic.
It's so amazing.
It's just so fucking bad. So
I just can't imagine.
But can you imagine that guy dealing with Putin and the president of China, who's a fierce person? He's a fierce.
So that was it you heard there. So, apparently on Twitter, people are saying he said she's a fucking bitch. Some people are saying he said she's so fucking bad. But if you slow it down, it does sound like he says, yeah.
Chuck, what do you think? What do you think? So this is Trump obviously talking right after the disastrous debate. This is right around the point that Biden's step announces a couple of weeks ago. What do you think he actually says?
Knowing how Trump talks, there's no doubt in my mind that whether he said that specifically there or said it elsewhere, you can tell by the tone of how he treats Kamala Harris, not to mention many other women, especially women who challenge him. That's Donald Trump.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know that this really matters. Like, what we're talking about here. Like, did he call her this name or not? I mean, obviously it would be significant in the sense that people would care about it. But I think, bigger picture, like you said, it's just his attitude. I think he says she's so fucking bad. I think that's what he says. But regardless, there's no question about how Donald Trump feels about Kamala Harris
pathetic,
or how she
calls
feels
her pathetic.
about him,
he regularly
right?
says that she has low IQ. Regularly calls her stupid. I mean, regularly does all that misogynistic stuff. Here's why it matters, okay? Just the statistics here, okay? This isn't as much fun as Canadian bar fighting, but it matters. 52% of voters, United States voters, 52% are women. Only 48% are men. Some people think 4% is not a big deal. Are you kidding me? When elections are won and lost based on a few hundred or a few thousand votes, 52% to 48% is huge. And so, yes, we can talk about abortion. We can talk about a lot of things. But the fact is, if you've got a personality that is obviously and serially and pathetically misogynistic, that's not just a slogan when it comes to Donald Trump. That is Donald Trump. So you've got a serial misogynist against a person who has a chance of being the first woman president of the United States. 52% of the voters are women, and it's going to be a whole lot easier to electrify them and to turn them out to get them to vote than it will be the guys. If you're thinking that scene on that golf course, no matter what he said, whether he said bad or bitch, that's bad news for the Republicans.
Here's the bottom line, though. Do you want your political leader being this dumb, Ryan? Talking to fucking guys on a golf course selling peanuts or beers or whatever, and talking that clearly to them about the person you're running against. How are you not that stupid in this day and age to think maybe there's a microphone, maybe there's a camera? That's what bothers me. I think he's inept, right?
Yeah, but you don't ever really expect to see that polish. You know what I mean? Like, I think it'd be shocking to hear certain politicians talk like that, and less shocking,
I'm sure they all do,
to hear others talk like that, right? You remember when Trump, there was the Billy Bush live mic when they were in the bus, and that was his grab her by the pussy moment, and remember that? And then what did he say to people after, and explaining it away? Just basically, he said, yeah, it was like locker room talk, right? Locker room talk. And he kind of was like, well, didn't deny it. He's just like, and this is what this is. Like, that's the same sort of idea.
But unfortunately for Trump, and obviously I'm not rooting for Trump, but unfortunately for Trump, this is more confirmation, more affirmation of the old guy. He has become Biden. Give you another poll, okay? This is University of Massachusetts at Amherst, considered a very reliable polling firm. And they simply asked people certain questions associated with why people had certain preferences. And they always ask this question. It doesn't matter who's running for president. They always ask, in my opinion, one of the best questions: who represents the future? 64% said Harris. 36% said Trump. In general, whether you're marketing cereal, podcasting, okay, or politics, the brand that is associated with tomorrow as opposed to yesterday, as Johnny points out throughout this business about the Olympics and what turns him on, the events and the brands that represent the future generally beat the hell out of those that represent the past. So when Donald Trump is doing this routine on the golf course and the routines he does at the rallies, many people are walking out of his rallies after 20 or 30 minutes because they've heard it before. It's old crap. Kamala Harris represents the future, Donald Trump the past. That puts her in the driver's seat all day long.
Let's dropping in on our YouTube live chat here. Shout out to everybody that joins us live weekday mornings on YouTube. Or on the Mixler live streaming audio app presented by California Closets. Lorraine says she's kicking his ass, and it's amazing to see. Vamp Fashions, in defense of Trump, says not liking a specific horrid woman, says Vamp Fashions, is not the same as misogynistic. Trump loves his wife, his daughter, and many good women. That from Vamp Fashions. Gabe says the only person beating Trump is Trump, and he's doing a great job at it. Cassandra says he truly doesn't care. Sylvia says he says outrageous things because he knows there's a mic there. And Ackhead83 is probably right. Says Trump's people are totally okay with him saying that kind of stuff. They're probably saying the exact same stuff about Kamala Harris, along with some racial slurs. Prairie Crossing says, I think he probably just doesn't care if he's being recorded. He thinks that he's invincible. And Erica says it doesn't matter if he said bitch or bad. It's a horrible look for him either way, and I'm no fan of Harris. That from Erica. So that's what Real Talkers are saying on it this morning, Chuck.
He loves his wife so much, he cheats on her with porn stars. And here's the other thing. Have you seen Melania in weeks? She's not on Trump Force One. She's not at the rallies.
Is that what they call it? Trump Force One?
Trump Force One, yeah. Oh. Which, everyone was pray for Trump because they had to make an emergency landing over last week as well. But she's non-existent. She hasn't been around a lot. So
Chuck, can I bring Francis Ford Coppola, the director of Godfather, into the conversation? By the way, Francis Coppola, for those of you who like wine, he's got some of the best vineyards in California. So many years ago, Francis Ford Coppola was directing Apocalypse Now. And Apocalypse Now had a number of actors who were absolutely wonderful, including Martin Sheen. But at the time, they weren't all that well known. They were like relatively raw. They were amazing, but they were new. And Francis Ford Coppola is being asked, where do you find this talent? I mean, not just a couple of stars. Where do you find all these stars? And Francis Ford Coppola said that talent is not difficult to find. Talent is everywhere. What's really difficult is finding disciplined talent. Donald Trump, regardless of what I may think of him, is a huge political talent. He's a tremendous political athlete, but he lacks discipline. And the older he gets and the angrier and grumpier he gets and the more pissed off he gets about Kamala Harris beating him, the worse it gets for him. But in the area of discipline is what I want to focus on. Donald Trump is getting less disciplined every day. And I don't care whether you're right wing or left wing. If your political athlete lacks discipline, they're losing.
Hey, Chuck, talk to us about this. You were tweeting about some polling out of Michigan that had caught your eye. You said that it screams gender gap. For people that follow you on Twitter at Charles Adler, take us into why you thought that the Michigan polling was so interesting in particular.
Well, because the gender gap, I mean, you look at Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, and when it comes to females, she's into the 60s. Okay, she's into the 60s, and of course, when it comes to males, she's into the 40s. It's the reverse with the Republicans. Okay, they're well deep into the 50s with males, and about 20 points less with females. None of that would matter. People would see it as a saw-off if there was an equal amount of male and female voters. But there isn't. There are far more female voters. Therefore, Kamala Harris has the edge. But by the way, the gender gap has always interested me. Did you know that ever since Jimmy Carter got more males than his opponent when he won in 1976 against, people forget this, but he actually beat Gerald Ford. Then Jimmy Carter lost to Ronald Reagan. But Jimmy Carter, which was 1976 was the last time that the Democrats got more males than the Republicans. The Republicans have been winning males every single year. And those people who are truly misogynistic and would like to take the vote away from females, if you took the vote away from females, Republicans would never lose.
Do you are you making as much of these? People are talking about like rally sizes, crowd sizes. I know that this is always kind of, there's got to be context in these conversations of when these videos are captured, et cetera, et cetera. But are you reading into this as much as some people are?
Well, Donald Trump is a size freak, and Donald Trump is so upset that Kamala Harris is outdrawing him in rallies 5-1, 10-1, 20-1, that he's now saying that Kamala Harris isn't really drawing a lot of people, that the media, through artificial intelligence, is faking it, that she doesn't have many people showing up at her rallies, but that the media is faking it. And then, of course, he's also mentioning Donald Trump in that 90-minute went on and on and on. Even a conservative spokesperson on CNN, Scott Jennings, who used to work for George Bush, also worked for Mitch McConnell. Even Scott Jennings, after that 90-minute horrid news conference that Donald Trump gave from Mar-a-Lago, even Scott Jennings, the conservative, said that Donald Trump had crapped the bed. He may have used a different word. I'll clean it up a little bit and just say he crapped the bed. But when it comes to crowd size, nothing pisses Donald Trump off more than Kamala outdrawing him, to the point where Donald Trump, at that crap the bed news conference at Mar-a-Lago, actually said that he, Donald Trump, outdrew Martin Luther King, that he got bigger crowds than Martin Luther King. I'm sorry. Can't even say it with a straight face.
Look at those crowds, though, when you're comparing. For the people on YouTube, as Charles is laughing, we're showing the crowds, and Trump saying he's got the biggest crowds. Sections of this rally are just empty, and then you look at Kamala's, and it's look at this, it's like a rock show, Ryan.
Yeah, no, it is. It's and like, to me, to a certain degree, I kind of roll my eyes at this stuff. Because it is relevant and it isn't.
Not really.
If there's a candidate that like doesn't draw as strongly as they'd like, or even like just to say it, like maybe the video comes out and it's like, it's a video panning the crowd 30 minutes before the candidate takes to the stage, so not everyone's in their seat. Whatever. Like, there's context to that type of stuff. But Trump has always been so big on the crowds, right? The inauguration crowd. And he wanted to talk about how his inauguration crowd was bigger than Obama's, and then people would show the aerial photo. So personally, I find it like more entertaining than anything. I don't think that turnout at a rally demonstrates if a candidate will or will not win an election. But
Ryan, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm saying that the reason it's relevant politically is that because it rents space. That theme rents a lot of space in Donald Trump's head. It makes him crazy. It makes him undisciplined. It makes him politically weaker. That's why the rally size matters, because it matters to him.
100%, Charles. You can just see him over the weekend, probably sitting on his plane, at the terminal, docked at the runway, looking at, even if you're saying, Ryan, even if these are before pictures or whatever, seeing that video being shared a million times and then seeing Kamala's afterwards, his head must just be spinning. Right?
Yeah. And then there's this post from Trump on Truth Social that everybody was talking about over the past couple of days. You had commented on it too, Chuck. I wanted to talk to you about this. Do I read the whole thing? Trump posts, has anyone noticed that Kamala cheated at the airport? He says there was nobody at the plane. She AI'd it and showed a massive crowd of so-called followers, but they didn't exist, says Trump. She was turned in by a maintenance worker at the airport when he noticed the fake crowd picture, but there was nobody there. Later confirmed by the reflection of the mirror, like finish on the vice presidential plane. She's a cheater. She had nobody waiting. The crowd looked like 10,000 people. Same thing's happening with her fake crowds at her speeches, says Trump. Says this is the way the Democrats will win elections, by cheating. They're worse at the ballot box. She should be disqualified, because the creation of a fake image is election interference. Anybody who does that will cheat at anything, says Trump. All caps throughout.
So if someone posted that kind of stuff, and I was helping with security at the White House, I'm positive that the person posting that nonsense would not get a pass to the White House. Never mind an office. Never mind the corner office. Never mind the Oval Office. I'm sorry. Everything he says disqualifies him because he comes across as deranged. It's got nothing to do with politics. It's got to do with his head.
Yeah, it's just like such a bizarre, the whole thing. The whole thing. We're gonna look back in 10, 15 years and just be like, what was going on there?
Yeah.
Chuck, it's always so good to see you, my man. We will check in with you again, the first episode next week, presented by our friends at Tice Automotive Consulting. Thanks, pal.
I want to thank Tice Automotive, and I want to thank Ryan Jesperson and Johnny Infamous for supporting my bid for bar fighting becoming a summer Olympic sport.
Okay. Adler in a bar fight. Now that is something that I would pay to see. That is an Olympic event that I would buy a ticket to. I like to see that. But you realize, to do all this, Johnny, we're going to have to thanks, Chuck. We'll talk to you again soon. We're going to have to get, because you're going to have to come up with, you have to have national champions first. Yeah. We're going to have to establish an internationally sanctioned bar fighting circuit. Yeah. Now, there are, of course, unofficial. Everybody knows the guy. Yeah. Everybody's got that one likes to fight guy. Everybody's got the one buddy. That you're already thinking of it as you're listening to this right now. You're already thinking of which one of your pals might be the one that you nominate.
And then the testing. Did he have elevated levels of alcohol when he was fighting?
And if not, why? It's the only sport where they're gonna breathalyze you before the competition to make sure that you're at the minimum entry level of intoxication.
0.08 before you throw a punch.
Yeah, I like this. You can let us know what you think. Hey, how about this for fun? Send us an email, talk@ryanjesperson.com. What's the Olympic event you would like to see? Okay, if not bar fighting, what is the Olympic event that you would like to see? Our email inbox is open 24 hours a day. This conversation here on Real Talk is presented by partners like our good friends at Athabasca University that want to remind you that fall will soon be upon us. And for a lot of people, fall is where you get back on track, you get back into your schedule. And for some of you, that may mean the first couple of steps on your post-secondary journey. Athabasca University is Canada's open university with world-class accredited online degrees and courses designed so you can complete your education wherever and whenever it works for you. And there are a ton of advantages to studying at AU that go well beyond the fact that your only commute is to your device. But that's a big one. You can learn more about transferring into AU, calculate your course fees, find out more about financial aid and awards by visiting athabascau.ca. And if you find yourself in Western Canada, you're one of those folks, a member of one of those communities that's been impacted by wildfire, that's dealing with maybe flooding, maybe you have a sewer main break that's causing some problems. Heck, it could be a home renovation project that all of a sudden has turned into black mold remediation. Whatever it is, you're going to want to leave a job like that to the talented, certified team at Complete Care Restoration. More than a quarter century of experience restoring property and rebuilding peace of mind, and they're ready to respond 24/7. You can find them online if disaster strikes, heaven forbid, at CompleteCareRestoration.ca. I like this from Justin, who says parkour could be sweet in the Olympics. Or competitive tag, he says.
See, parkour,
says it's intense. It could look right at home in the Olympic Games. Parkour would be cool.
I would not be adverse to that. That is some crazy stuff.
Yeah. I mean, people doing backflips and all these kinds of stuff.
Of course.
If you ever want to sound old, just get me to try to describe a sport like parkour. Oh, it's all these
parkour!
youngins. It's all these young kids.
Parkour!
All these youngins. Wanted to give you, before we get to our positive reflection for the day, and by the way, I'm calling an audible on positive reflections. I'm going off script, so forget all the stuff I sent you.
Right.
Forget we're going to push that to another week because I'm just feeling inspired on this. But I wanted to let you know a couple of things that are coming up right now. Coming up on Tuesday's show. So this is going to be the episode of Real Talk. If you're listening to this on the days that we're doing them, this will be the 13th of August. Dr. Timothy Caulfield is going to join us tomorrow. I wanted to let you know, obviously, there are some stories happening and some political developments happening in our neck of the woods in Western Canada as well, including a United Conservative MLA that's talking a lot about getting rid of COVID vaccines in the province of Alberta. And we figured that maybe there's some myth busting that needs to be done, or at least a fact-based conversation on things like vaccines and kids. And so Professor Caulfield's going to join us on our August 13th episode. And then coming up later in this week, it looks like it's going to be the 14th of August. We've got a flip side, and this is a big part of what we want to do here on Real Talk. So you have informed opinions, and so you're getting the sides of the story that matter. It's not just an echo chamber. We've got a hunting expert. He's a storyteller. He hosts a podcast, and he's going to present a different angle on Alberta lifting the ban on hunting so-called problem grizzly bears. So we've done episodes on this in past, including with Dr. Sarah El-Maliki, who's a bear biologist. She also happens to be the MLA for Banff Kananaskis. And then we had John Marriott, John E. Marriott, a globally recognized conservation photographer, joined us on an episode of Real Talk within the last couple of weeks. You can find it in our archives. They're obviously both adamantly against what the province of Alberta is doing to manage the so-called problem grizzly population. But this week we want to get the other side of the story, the argument for it. And so that's coming up this week on Real Talk. Wanted to give you the heads up on that. We're always open to your feedback as well. If there's a story that's catching your attention, you'd like to see this show take it on, you know where to find us. Now, every Monday or the first episode of every week, our friends at Kuby Renewable Energy give us the opportunity to remember that there are a lot of pretty amazing things happening around us. There's a lot of reason for optimism. These are the silver lining reminders on a Monday morning, positive reflections. It is presented by our friends at Kuby Renewable Energy, and I'm just feeling led by this conversation today and by what people are saying in the live chat and by the wrap up to the Paris Olympic Games to just take this opportunity off script, impromptu, flying by the seat of my pants, to give a shout out to every single person that's out there for the love of the game. I'm talking about coaches that are doing it because they care about kids, because they care about athletes, because they care about sport. They see value in the pursuit of excellence, whether that's under the spotlight, the glitz and glamour, the global recognition that comes with medaling a podium finish at the Olympic Games. But I'm also talking to the community champions, the people that are there early, opening up the gym, or they're late, sweeping up, the ones that are quietly removing the financial barriers for kids that might not otherwise have access to sport. What about all the teachers that take time out of the classroom into their own time to coach the up-and-comers? What about the parents that are waking up early or staying up late, logging hundreds of kilometers, sometimes every single week, to make sure that your kid or the neighbor kids have access to the sports they love? And what about the athletes that do it all without the guarantee that they're going to get famous? As a matter of fact, for a lot of you that are out there, I see you running in the rain. I see you lifting weights. Well, I don't see you lifting weights in your basement. That would be creepy. But we know that you're there. The people that are doing it for personal fulfillment, for health and wellness, to better yourselves, not in pursuit of some sort of fame or fortune. You know, we're reminded during the Olympic Games that, there's huge commercial elements to it all, and really, money is at the center of a lot of this high-profile stuff. But at the root of it, at its best, the fire that burns in the belly of those athletes, the power that we see in their eyes as they look up to the family members there in the stands, or in best case scenario, to their nation's flag as that anthem plays. A shout out to you, to every single one of you that breaks a sweat for the right reasons, to make yourself and those around you better. As the Olympic Games wrap up and we get back into our swing of things this summer, for some of us that might be on the sidelines at soccer games with the kids, maybe it's swimming lessons, maybe you're just there admiring what people are doing all around you, which is getting better, the pursuit of excellence, and lifting each other up along the way. We salute you. On behalf of our friends at Kuby Renewable Energy, don't forget you can get a free solar quote 24 hours a day anytime by visiting kubyenergy.ca. Thanks for being a part of this episode. Thanks for sharing it with your friends, smashing that like button, and subscribing to us on YouTube. We'll talk to you again soon.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson, executive producer Josh Dunford, technical producer John Hicks, general manager Katie Cook-Chivers, account coordinator Lawrence Derlego, human resources Lena Shepard, website design Mike Johnston, voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton. Real Talk's editorial board is Supriya Dwivedi, Ahmed Ali, Randy Morin, Ann Castleman, Corey Hogan, Harmon Candola, Catherine O'Neill, and Chris Henderson. Member Emerita, Julie Rohr. Real Talk is recorded in Edmonton, Alberta on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux, home to the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta. Real Talk is a relay project.